We are now approaching the November meeting between President Trump and President Xi. Will we see an outcome there? If not, we're going to see those tariffs up to 25% early next year. What's your reading on the situation?
Neither of them want to pull the trigger on this. And in fact, I don't think they can pull the trigger on it. Everyone looks at the impact it's going to have on trade and GDP. And the impact on GDP growth for both these large domestic-driven economies isn't much. But when you start to look at the impact it will have on prices in these economies, it is gigantic. Go back to 2009. China's exports fell just $40 billion, only $40 billion. Now we're talking about $250 billion worth of exports being stopped in 2019 if they hike those tariffs, 5 times bigger. In that year when they stopped, China's producer price index went from 8% growth to minus 10% the next year, a collapse in industrial prices. That will go on in China, and it's really bad for China. By the same token, across in the United States, you will get a spike in inflation, just what Trump doesn't want. And if he wants to stop the Fed putting up interest rates, he doesn't want to fool around with tariffs. If they put that 25% tariff on half of China's imports into the United States, you will double the inflation rate within a quarter. Where do you go to find all of the components to replace that in the industrial system? You can't do it. So I actually don't think Trump is holding a loaded gun at this point. And our view is that they reach an agreement to come up with some sort of fudged deal that can be sold by Trump to the US voter and get it off the table.
That, I guess, keeps him saving face in some respect as well. If we do get to that point, I guess before the January changeover date for the level of those tariffs kicks in, what's that going to mean then for markets more broadly, I guess in the US and here in the Asian region as well?
If there's no deal done and we're cruising up to January 1 with that hike in tariffs going on, well, part of that's already happening. I mean, I'm sure you've been talking about it on CNBC. What we've seen in the last month or two is a surge in exports out of China. People wanted to beat that tariff hike. So if the tariff hike does go through, we see, of course, a collapse in exports across and quite a lot of discomfort in the supply chain. If they remove the threat of the tariff, we get the other thing, the opposite of that. We get companies that have done a lot of shipping in the fourth quarter of this year who don't need to ship in the first quarter of next year. And we go into a bit of a downturn then. You know, factories in China idle because they've already sent their product to the United States in the fourth quarter. So there's a lot of volatility. If you're managing an industrial firm right now, this is a very uneasy period for you.
Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.